Really, every person here could become a great speaker. Have you ever heard of the man called Winston Churchill? Everybody know him? Yeah. He's considered maybe the best speaker ever in the world. Fact is, his speeches had a huge impact on the outcome of World War II. But you know what? When he was young, he had problems. He used to stammer, he used to have a stutter, and he used to have a lisp, so he couldn't say certain words. So as a young child, he couldn't do that. And even when he got older and he started doing speeches regularly, people said he was the most boring speaker they ever heard. There was no life to him, it was just monotone. And then when he was 29 years of age, he became a member of the House of Commons in England. And on his first speech, he got up to talk, and he forgot what to say. And he stood there for 3 minutes, and everybody just laughed at him. That's at 29. In his 60s, he became the world's greatest speaker. So he wasn't born a speaker. No one is born a speaker. Now there's another person who had a lot of problems when he was younger. This guy here. I was petrified of speaking in front of people. When I was going to university, I was studying physical education. So I had classes where I had to get up in front and teach something, like doing tennis. And I would get up in front of everybody, I start shaking, and and everybody just started laughing at me. All my classmates said, "Very nice to you, very nice." And so I couldn't take it. Then, when I was 30, I went to Bible school, and I had to take this preaching class. My very first day that I had to do a sermon in class, I didn't do it. Because the night before, I stayed up all night vomiting. Do you know what? So, can anyone understand? I did not like getting in front of people. But now that has changed. So I'm telling you, from personal experience and from the greatest speaker ever, Winston Churchill, you can become a much better speaker. It just takes the effort. But the question is, why would you want to become a great speaker? Can you guys think of anything? Tell me. Anything you think of. Why would you want to become a great speaker? For helps in leadership? Okay. How about this? It gives you confidence. If you can speak in front of people, that gives you confidence no matter what you do. You can go out and you can initiate speaking to people. If you're at work and the boss wants you to talk about something, you have the confidence to get up and start speaking. Also, not only gives you confidence, but it gives you the ability to influence other people. You can let your passion light other people up too. Also, not only influence, but you can have an impact in such a way that you can change the world, at least your world. You can change something. So with our speaking, it can be a very powerful tool to help you in life. With that comes opportunities. If you are a great speaker, you're going to have opportunities to speak. And with those opportunities, eventually comes money. Money improves. Now, just to point out a friend of mine, okay then. Okay. Sorry about that. I had a friend in Bucharest when I was living there. His name was John. He worked for Merlin, what's that store? Leroy Merlin. Yeah. Yeah, the store. And he just started out like just a general guy putting stuff on the racks. Well, eventually he worked hard, and after 3 years or 4 years, he became a head of a department. Then one day the head bosses came to town, and they wanted every department head to give a presentation on their departments. He had been speaking a lot in front of people. Nobody else in the store had. So when they got up to do their presentations, everybody else blew it, but his came off really well. And guess who got put on the fast track for management? So you can see that speaking can have an impact in your life in many ways. So today, what I want to do is just share with you the big picture, the big ideas. Because in a 15 to 20 minute presentation, I can't give you all the little details. So what I want you to do is think about the main things I say here, and then take it with you, and then use that as you try to get better. Now, for everybody that wants to I'm going to put these slides, I have some handouts, some other materials for how to learn how to speak. I'm going to put it all together and make it available for you. So there will be some resources afterwards. Now, as far as getting ready to start to become a great speaker, there's the foundation of what you have to do in order to become great. Now this is stuff that doesn't matter what you are going to try. It's speaking, be a sports person, be a geneticist, whatever you want it to be. These things will apply to everybody. The first and most important thing if you want to be a great speaker is you need to have the right mindset. You have to think in a certain way that you really want to become a great speaker. Winston Churchill, after everybody made fun of him that time in the House of Commons, he said, never again. And from that moment on, he had a resolve to get better. So you have to have enough resolve to overcome your fears. Now I'm not going to go into detail, but here's a few of the things. You need to be proactive. You have to take an effort, energy. You can't wait for things to happen. You have to make the effort to learn yourself. So there's a commitment, your commitment of yourself, your time and efforts. You have to embrace excellence. You have to strive to become better, not just be satisfied with getting by and just being good enough, but that you're always striving to become better. You have to be a self-learner. You have to make the effort to keep learning. When I first joined this club, you learn a lot in the club. But I wanted to learn more, and so I got involved in reading blogs that deal with public speaking. And now I follow like 30, 40 blogs. And so I've learned a lot by taking that extra effort to learn outside of the club. Then it takes discipline, because it's so much easier to do other things every day. Then the effort and feedback. You have to love feedback. You have to want feedback. You want to always have people telling you what they see so that you can improve. And you can get feedback from people. You can record yourself with your camera for audio or visual. And whenever you speak, like in Toastmasters, did you turn that on?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I can look at this later to see how I can improve. So always try and get feedback. Now there's one more thing that I want to talk about. And this is probably the most important in my opinion, of what keeps people from becoming really good. And that is this. Whoops. Fear. Fear is what holds most people back. Even in the club, people will sit back and not make the effort to get up in front and talk because it's kind of scary. You know, what's fearful about being in front? You're not going to die, are you? None of us are going to die if we get in front. But we might embarrass ourselves. We might not look good. We might make mistakes. And people might not think well of us. So we want to stop that and get away from it. When I started in Toastmasters, the thing I was scared about was doing table topics. You know, getting up in front and just have someone tell you what to do. I was nervous at first, but I forced myself to get up there. And I would tell the Toastmaster, the table topic master, hey, make sure you pick me tonight. Make sure you pick me. So I did it consistently, and over time it got much easier. So you have to, I would say, not only you have to face your fear, you have to lean into your fear, then you have to walk through your fear. And then once you do that enough times, it's not such a big deal. You're going, oh, what am I so scared about? You know that 90%, let's put it this way, 75% of all people have a fear of speaking. It's one of the top. Even more people, a lot of people are scared, more scared of speaking than they are of death. Okay? 10% of the people in the world enjoy speaking in front of others, are good at it. So if you become a good speaker, that gives you an advantage over 90% of the people. So think of it in that terms. Another thing you need to do is develop a system. How do you go about getting better? What processes do you do? What steps do you take in order to get better? And like I said, I have figured out a system for me. I have 15 things in my system. And what I do is I use that when I'm mentoring people in the club. And so I'm going to give you that as part of the stuff I'll put together so you can look at it if you're interested. But here's what gives the idea really across. Valentine, would you read that for us?
Yes. I will come in front or?
No, just right there.
Okay, cool. Goals can provide direction and even push you forward in the short term. But eventually, a well-designed system will always win. Having a system is what matters. Committing to the process is what makes the difference.
The process, the journey. You have to establish and make it smart so that it's effective for you to get the most out of it. Next thing you need to do is develop a routine. And what I'm talking about here is establishing learning habits that work for you. I suggest, and I'll show them, well, let me go ahead and show this first before I do it. Okay? So you want to read that for us?
Sure.
Okay.
1 hour per day of study, will put you at the top of your field within 3 years. Within 5 years, you'll be a national authority. In 7 years, you can be one of the best people in the world at what you do.
Now, Earl Nightingale was one of, we call him the grandfathers of the personal development field. He was one of the original ones who was involved in doing this. So I just want you to think about what he's saying there. And how can this apply to becoming a better speaker? Maybe it wouldn't take always an hour a day, but if you put a little bit of time every day, you're going to do much, much better than cramming it the day before you do a speech and then try to do it. Because it takes your brain time to rewire itself. So if you're doing a little bit in chunks every day, you will become much better. Maybe some days you do 15 minutes, maybe some days an hour. Then when you're getting ready for speeches, maybe then you're doing more hour, even maybe 2 hours occasionally. But putting aside time every day, maybe 5 days a week, you will become much better. This is a wise thing to do. Now, how about the secret to becoming? Now that we looked at some principal things, what is the secret about really becoming a great speaker? The first thing is you have to learn what to focus on. And this is something that took me time as a speaker. As we focus on certain specific things, what I'm going to do is, what things do you really want to concentrate on learning about in order to be a good speaker? And there's 3 things. The first one is you need to know your audience. This is an important thing. In Toastmasters, it's not such a big deal. You know everybody in the club. But when you go out into the real world and you're going to speak before people, you better understand what they know about what you're talking about so that you can better relate to them and communicate to them. And you can do that through surveys. You can look at some of the key people who are going to be there and look at their Facebook pages. There's a lot of different ways that you can accumulate that information to learn more. If it's some conference coordinator, could tell you kind of what's going on, what the people know. So there's ways of accumulating that information, but the more you know about your audience, the better a speech you can give. Then you have to focus on your content. And by this, I mean just the material you're putting together, the writing out of your speech, the actual speech, that's your content. And that takes a lot of time. If you want to have a great speech, you better have great content. Or people are going to get bored and they're going to turn off. They're not going to be listening. So there's certain things you can do to develop content. Then you need to practice your delivery. Delivery involves the 2 main things is your voice and your body. There's not the only 2, but those are the most important. You need to learn how to use your body and how to use your voice that helps people to connect with you. Now, as a goal, when you are speaking, you have 3 parts to your speech. You have the introduction, you have the body, and you have the closing. And each of those has an objective. You have a goal with them. The first thing you want to do with your goal is this. You don't want to kill your audience, okay? If you're boring them to death, that's killing them. So you don't want to do that. Don't kill your audience. But first, do this. In your introduction, you want to connect with your audience. You connect with your audience on how you come out, eye contact, good voice, open gestures, not like hiding, but being open, and looking at it and smile. These are the things that help you connect with people. Then you need to connect what you're going to talk about with your audience. Now tonight, I started out by having to say, I said fact, everybody can be a great speaker. I was talking to you, I was connecting you to what I was saying. And I do some preaching, okay, I preach in churches. You know, that's a hard time to figure out, what do you do to start a sermon? But here's an example of how I use this information. I was teaching from Matthew when it talked about this rich synagogue leader, and he goes to Jesus and says, what do I need to do to attain eternal life? He asked that question. So I was thinking, how can I connect my audience to this? Rather than just talking about that, about Jesus, but what can I do to connect my audience to this idea? So what I did is I started out and said, I told a little story. Imagine you're in a park and it's a beautiful day, and you sit down on the bench, and the birds are singing and the children are playing, and you just, man, this is a beautiful day. And all of a sudden, someone next to you says, may I sit down? And you look up, and it's Jesus. Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead, sit down. What question would you love to ask him? That was my intro, because what I was teaching on, this guy meets Jesus and he asked him a question. So this is how I connected them to the idea. So think about whatever you say, how does it help get the audience connected to it? Think about that. Then during the body of your speech, you want to engage your audience. You want your ideas to flow logically. If they don't, your audience will get very confused. So you want to keep the body, you want to keep it simple and concise as possible, so there's not lots of extra words. And that's one of the things I learned a lot in Toastmasters, is how to cut out all the extra stuff. Then your goal at the very end, as you're closing, is you want to change your audience. And I use the megaphone because in your closing, you should have some kind of call to action. You should be telling your audience there's something they need to do that will take what they've learned from you and put it into practice. So you have to think of some way to get them involved. So think about, at the end, how you're going to get your audience to do something with what you taught them. Then we go on to what it is about being a speaker, how to be involved in being a big speaker. Oh, okay, sorry. It's just different how it sets up here a little bit from mine. All right, so when we want to be a big speaker, we want to be really good at something. This is what I share with everybody. This is the concise. I can say in 9 words what it takes to be a great speaker. Okay? Here we go. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Practice, practice, practice. Speak, speak, speak. If you do that, you'll become a great speaker. Okay? First of all, let's look at prepare. When you prepare, that's working on your content. The first thing you want to do is to know your audience. Figure out knowing your audience. Then write out a purpose. What is the purpose of your speech? Then you do an outline of your speech. Then you write out each part of it, the introduction, the closing, and then the body in the middle. And make sure you put good transitions in between each part. These are things that you work on in the preparing stage. Then when you get to the practice, practice, practice stage, you're getting up in your house or wherever you are, maybe in front of a mirror. I don't do the mirror. I just go to my living room and I practice it. And first of all, you want to practice just doing it without worrying about your voice or your hands. Do it until you're comfortable with what you're talking about. Then once you're comfortable with what you're talking about, you know it, then you can practice your body gestures. Now the ideal thing is you want to have your hands at your side. Not here like a T-Rex, okay? Or not like a butler, like if someone had a towel on their arm. We see this, I see this a lot, okay? You want your hands down, and then just use your arms to emphasize things like this. Use your hands and arms. Emphasize talking about things. But then bring them back down. Don't leave them up in the air. And most people think this is weird. But this is, does that seem weird to you when I'm hanging my hand? No. But we feel weird when we're up in front and we're putting our hands down. But that's what you should be doing. Then after practicing, whoops.
Down.
Huh? Almost done. Then I said, speak, speak, speak. Okay. So what you want to do to get better at speaking? You need to get out and speak in front of people. Okay? That's the only way you're going to get better. And everybody should be doing that. This is how we get to be good. Now we're coming to the end here, as I come to the end of this thing. I want to share a quote from the 30th President of the United States, Calvin Coolidge. And this goes back to those first foundational things that I talked to you about. Who would like to read this? Cosmin, can we all read that?
Of course.
Okay.
Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than an unsuccessful man with talent. Geniuses will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated and derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent.
So again, going back to our foundation, the thing that is going to make you a successful speaker or a great speaker is having the right mindset, working from here. This is where you have to start. Then you have to face your fears, go through your fears, then develop a good system for learning how to speak, and get into a routine where you're doing something every day. Now here's a thing that might help you. Say, if it's hard for you to actually set time aside, maybe you could tell yourself, okay, after I get done eating every night, I'm going to spend 15 minutes working on speaking. Or whatever you have in the evenings where you have something. Or if you get up early in the day, I'm going to get up in the early morning, and I'm going to get rested, showered, and then I'm going to spend 15 minutes working on things. So just figure a time every day to do it. Make it a habit. And probably the best thing you could do is join the Brush Off Toastmasters Club. Okay? Because here you get to practice, you learn the systems. Toastmasters has their own system. You get a manual, and you do 10 speeches, and through that, you get to learn how to speak. So I encourage you, learn how to speak. Be equipped to impact your world for good. Have an impact with what you say. Now, for all the information I want to give you in a handout now, if you do this, if you want, here's my email address, dolcewill@gmail.com, or my Facebook. I will also put it on our Facebook page. Okay, like I'll put everything in like a compressed file and put it to WeTransfer, and then I'll put the link on our page so you can download things there. So I just encourage you. You all honestly can become great speakers, and you can have an impact in this world, and it will make your life much better. So I encourage you, take advantage of this experience you can have here, or if you can't make it here, figure a way for yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, William.